Hello all, and welcome to the fourth webinar in our Intelligent Automation 2020 webinar series with the topic Findings of the Finnish RPA Study and their implications on RPA market development. We encourage you in the audience to ask questions about the webinar or the study itself. This can be done with the questions function on GoToWebinar tool on the right side of the screen. My name is Lauri Huhtamaa, and I oversee the RPA deliveries in Finland. My special interest in the RPA and Intelligent Automation programs lie in the governance and strategy, on how these programs are set up and how can those get even better. With me, I have here Anna Valaja, who has been one of the main contributors of the study.
Hello, and welcome to listen to the webinar also from my end. My name is Anna, and I work as a business analyst in our Intelligent Automation team at Capgemini Finland. And I have been pretty closely involved with the RPA study in question, mainly on the analysis side. And yeah, I think that's why I'm here today. Thanks.
It's great to have you here, Anna. We also have here our very own RPA pioneer and head of Nordic Intelligent Automation Center of Excellence, Jaakko Lehtinen.
Yeah, thanks, Lauri. It's nice to be here today with you and Anna.
Pleasure to have you here, Jaakko. Today, we will be first discussing on RPA in the program level, with a focus on how different Finnish companies have started to advance RPA in their own organizations. In the latter part, we will discuss more about RPA technology, including how the RPA program has been or will be scaled towards intelligent automation. After this, we will take a look at the questions submitted by you. But now to the actual topic. Anna, could you please tell us briefly what the Finnish RPA Market Study is about?
Yes, so at the end of last year, we sent an online questionnaire to over 100 people in Finland. And we knew that these people were also responsible for RPA initiatives in their companies. So we kind of really tried to approach only the biggest companies and organizations in Finland and wanted to pinpoint our questionnaire to a single respondent that is relevant from RPA point of view. That way we try to avoid the bias where we have plenty of respondents from only a few companies where we just happen to know the biggest amount of people. And the total number of respondents was finally 38. So we are quite happy with the response rate. And going towards the content, the questionnaire consisted of a wide variety of questions related to RPA. There was questions such as, when did they start their RPA program? Are they satisfied with it? And has it been challenging? Or what are the positive experiences? And in which business areas they are using RPA, and so on. And finally, the responses were analyzed and put together by our consultants in our Intelligent Automation team.
Great. The sample size sounds good indeed, and makes it possible to also generalize the findings. And by the way, many thanks to our respondents, some of who might be in our audience right now. Jaakko, could you tell us where this idea to host such a survey came from?
Yeah, sure. I think it was about time to check once again where we stand with RPA in Finland. At least for me personally, it's I think more than 4 years since I have been involved in any study related to this RPA market development in Finland, and I haven't seen anyone else doing it either. And quite a lot has been changing since the previous time when I was looking into it. We wanted to learn whether companies really have now managed to scale up with RPA, and of course also now hear an update what are really the current biggest positive and negative surprises with RPA. And also, of course, as a consulting company employee, I wanted to understand that how do the delivery models look like, what are the technology selections, what kind of partnership models our customers and other organizations do have. And of course, all of our dear customers and other contacts are constantly asking us these similar questions, and I wanted to have, and I guess we all wanted to have up-to-date answers that go a little bit beyond what we only see when we meet our kind of constant contacts and see what's going on in our current projects.
Interesting. It sounds like a great opportunity to benchmark the state of single RPA program. With more and more companies being interested in RPA to support their operations, RPA has been made its way into more mainstream discussions, especially during the past couple of years. Does this show up in the survey results, Anna?
RPA is a pretty fresh thing indeed. Of course, I know that some of my colleagues here at Capgemini know about certain RPA projects in Finland that have started already back in 2015 or even 14. However, according to our study, it looks like only in 2016 and 17, companies have increasingly started to try or implement RPA. But as you can see, finally, 2018 it seems to be the most common year for big companies and organizations to start deploying software automation robots. And then finally, numbers are declining again in 2019. And here I have to note that this questionnaire was sent out while 2019 was still ongoing, but still we can see that most of the companies do not need to start their RPA programs anymore, as they are already running, obviously.
Yes. So the majority of companies are still in their first couple of years with RPA. Still, I have heard a lot of discussion about Finland being ahead of the rest of the world in implementing RPA robots. Jaakko, is this actually true?
Yeah, I think that Finland took the baby steps with RPA somewhat earlier than almost everyone in Europe, maybe excluding United Kingdom, which is a home for some globally pioneering RPA technology and consulting companies. And at least I think I really felt the difference between Finland and any other country which I visited and spoke about RPA. That way that the overall awareness of RPA was a lot higher in Finland than even in any of our neighboring countries. But having said that, despite of this kind of early adoption, I really don't think that we should be making big fanfares yet or at the moment. I'm actually, I would say, that a little bit worried about the slow pace that many companies in Finland have had in this RPA scale up. And if we compare today's situation against Sweden, our closest neighbor, we can already see some differences. I would say that the people in Sweden needed a lot more time in trying to understand what RPA is about and what is the opportunity, and then they were really a lot later starting these automation programs. But looking at them today, not thinking who was the first to start, but who is the first to scale up, I can see a lot more ambitious initiatives in general in Sweden than what I see in general happening in Finland. And of course, also in Finland, we have plenty of success stories and great RPA journeys that we have been listening to and hearing, but also way too many cases where I'm not really sure if the things are going right at the moment. And I would say that some of the pilots we have been seeing and hearing about have been almost stagnated, and almost all of the benefits are still out there to get captured.
Well, let's hope that Finland will pick up in the scaling pace as well, and we can keep our position amongst the most advanced RPA countries. But regarding scaling up, Anna, in the study it came up that who leads the program might have an effect on how fast the program is scaled up. Is this true?
So yes, in the study we ask about the ownership of RPA program and about companies' willingness to invest in RPA over the next 3 years. And we noticed that slightly over half of the companies divide the RPA ownership between IT and business departments. And then we can see from the table that 1/5 of the cases IT has the ownership, and also respectively in 1/5 of the cases the ownership of the RPA program is business led. Now, when we contrast the RPA ownership to the willingness to invest in RPA, the questionnaire shows that business-owned RPA programs seem to have a bigger value future investment compared to those IT-owned RPA programs. However, I think only the business ownership does not necessarily guarantee the best cost efficiency, and too business-oriented view to RPA might be even a bit risky. But also purely IT-owned RPA programs seem to have pretty careful willingness to invest, but I don't know, is it then even too careful?
Indeed. We of course need to be a bit careful in linking investment budget directly to the scale-up speed. But this finding at least confirms my personal experience from several companies where I have seen IT-led programs spend a lot of effort in promotion and selling of RPA as a potential solution to the business units. Jaakko, how do you feel about this finding?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons is quite natural. Many IT departments, of course, have a target to keep their IT costs low, while business, on the other hand, is typically measured from things like operational efficiency or quality. And then if their RPA costs are really high or low, maybe they are not directly penalized or rewarded that in the same way as IT might be. And I completely agree with what Anna already hinted there, that this is about the future budget size, and this is not saying that who will be most successful in scaling up RPA, and those are two totally different things. And I don't feel like I have seen the business-led initiatives automatically being a lot better than any of the other models. And in the business-led model, I think there is one major risk that the whole program will remain in a small silo. So whoever in the business is starting RPA, no matter how good it goes, it might be that this RPA just remains there, and nobody has a clear mandate or buy-in to scale it up and go to another location or go to another business area or different function. And in the worst case, this might even lead to a situation where you have several business RPA initiatives happening at the same time, and every one of them kind of independent. And then if you think about the long-term targets that you want to do it efficiently and in a standard way, you are already kind of creating a legacy when you do it in an unorganized way already in the beginning. And my kind of gut feeling is that almost all the RPA programs that really have been creating significant company-wide benefits have had sponsors somewhere very high in the organization. And then it doesn't matter if it's business or IT, but the point is that you have to have a clear mandate and also expectation coming from the management that they want to create these kind of big tangible benefits with RPA. And when you have that in place, then usually the right things also start to happen.
Yes. The executive sponsorship is definitely something that does wonders in the potential to scale up the program. It is no surprise that multiple advisors expect RPA programs to move soon to the level where organizational decision making involving more and more C-level executives with the program, and thus helping these programs scale up faster. But now, with most of the programs being still set up by the few people responsible for RPA in the entire organization, how happy are they with their own programs?
Okay, so as you can see, the study revealed that people are quite okay satisfied with their RPA initiatives. The average result was 3.6, and it indicates that people are more satisfied than unsatisfied, but clearly there is some room for improvement.
Yeah, and what I was surprised was that the average was only 3.6, and reason why I say it is that the first thing I paid attention to when looking at the results was that pretty much nobody was unsatisfied. So everyone was saying that they are okay, or most of them said that they are satisfied with RPA, but you cannot actually see that by looking at the average. It looks a little bit weak when presented like that.
Yeah, that is true too. So there are of course some problems and challenges in each one as well. Anna, could you give us an overview on what these might be?
Yes, so we asked in the questionnaire about the biggest challenges regarding RPA. And there on the slide, there are a few of the answers that we got. From these answers, we made 4 different categories, and one of them was lack of a robust RPA strategy and roadmap. Then the second one was difficulty of managing organizational change. Third one was concerns about IT security and compliance. And the fourth one was lack of experienced RPA resources, aka employees. So especially if we now think about scaling up the RPA initiatives, these challenges must be overcome. And how I see this is that actually this list of challenges that we got could actually be one of the starting points of what to think about when starting to scale up the RPA production.
That's a good point. And nevertheless, it sounds like many of these might be connected to each other as well. Moving from the pilot to large-scale production in just a couple of years might lead the few experts to run out of hands to address all points mentioned. Jaakko, how would you be solving these challenges?
I would say that if you don't have good basis for scaling up, then you will probably be facing some problems or unexpected surprises when you end up having dozens of automations implemented, maybe 20, maybe even 50 before you figure out that you want to do something. Then you might end up having some problems with operations, or realize that the IT and license costs are a lot higher than what you were expecting in the beginning. And one thing that I have been kind of seeing change is that we are being more often asked to do something that we are calling RPA health assessment, where the idea is that we try to understand together with the clients that where their RPA programs really stand today, what they do now, how they are doing it, what would they want to accomplish with automation technologies, and then we try to come up with this kind of an assessment and advice on what could they do to standardize and centralize the all aspects about RPA in a way that whatever these problems are that they are currently facing will be resolved in the best possible way. And after you have the basis set in the right way, then of course it's usually a lot easier and more convenient to keep on scaling up. And this is something now that we have been promoting also to our colleagues, that this has attracted some international interest as well. And I think we have this health assessment customers served via Finland even on the other side of the globe.
And thanks, that sounds good. Summarizing what we have been discussing with the previous topics, from the young RPA maturity and growing pains discovered, you could assume that in the program level, things are still shaping up and looking for their final form.
Yes, this is how I think it is. So, for example, if we have a look into different business functions in different companies, we'll notice that in most organizations, only a few business units are involved with RPA. So, if we again look at the study showed that most of the respondents have focused their RPA efforts only in 1 to 2 key departments, and only 16% of the respondents have implemented RPA in more than 3 departments again. So as Lauri said, we could state that we are still kind of in the phase of shaping up, and companies have really room to expand their RPA program over different departments. And from the slide, we can see that the most common business functions where RPA has been implemented, they are clearly accounting and finance. Then accounting and finance is followed by customer service and human resources. And the least exploited software robots seem to be in the legal department, research and development, and marketing and advertising. And in my opinion, these results are not really that surprising, as those business functions like legal or advertising, marketing, these require, for example, creativity, and cases are usually pretty unique. So instead of RPA, these functions benefit more other technologies, such as, for example, natural language processing or machine learning, and so on.
So it seems like many companies are stuck in the silos which were mentioned earlier, or perhaps just proceeding rather slowly. Jaakko, what is your take in these figures?
Yeah, I was looking at it maybe from a different point of view. When I saw this accounting and finance 82% column here, I was thinking that, do we really know companies who say that they are using RPA and then say also that we don't have them in F&A at all? So that's in a way a big surprise to me. And another thing is something you cannot see purely by looking at this chart alone, but here we see that less than half say that they have any robots at all in customer service. But then we were also asking in the same study a different question, that where our customers are and other contacts are seeing to get biggest benefits of RPA, and more than half said customer service, even though they are not having the robots in use there at all. So I think they were kind of thinking that that's a question about the future expectations, and indeed we know that many are yet to properly deploy RPA in their customer service departments, and this actually brings yet another trend in my mind, which is this front office robotics, or some people call it desktop robotics. I feel like it's coming back to many companies' agendas now, and it's one of the cures also for service desk automation.
Yeah, the point you mentioned is definitely interesting. Also, it might be that finance and accounting are just more used on having IT solutions affecting the outcomes, while the customer service is a bit careful when changing processes visible to the customers. And this is again where also the front office robotics would be a great help. But anyways, it is good that things are moving ahead to capture that potential as well. But now, when more and more business units are getting involved, it is crucial to have the responsibilities clear and operations secured. In other words, have a delivery model in place. Anna, how Finnish companies have approached this?
Okay, so I think the figure what we have here illustrates well the company's decisions made with RPA delivery models. So a clear majority of the survey respondents uses third-party services in some extent. And we could roughly say that about 1/3 of fully outsourced or yeah, 1/3 of a fully outsourced service, external automation service here, and then there are 2/3 of the respondents who have their servers according to their usual ID model. So some in the cloud and some are not. And if we look into those 2/3 again, we can say that they are split roughly 50-50. So the RPA platform management is or is not outsourced. And yeah, these are kind of the trend lines, what we discover from the data. And yeah, around 1/3 falling into each of these delivery model categories here.
It's interesting to have these numbers backing our real life experience as well, since we have been encountering quite evenly these different approaches when we have been discussing many companies about their RPA program. So Jaakko, looking at this, do you have any bold predictions after reading our recent study?
I'm not sure if this is bold enough or if there's anything bold in my answer, but I have been predicting for a long time already, and I will still keep my prediction that while the sizes of RPA programs are scaling up, they also become commodities. And then when you have a commodity, companies will start to look into how to outsource or how to get rid of the new mundane or routine works that you will get together with RPA. And by routines, I mean things like managing the RPA platform, monitoring the automations and robots, resolving incidents, also doing some change management. So I also have this prediction due to the fact that I believe most of the these big RFPs from the past year or even 2 years have been strongly related into outsourcing this kind of daily RPA operations and maintenance work, and it's increasingly less about providing just advising on where to find the automation potential or providing only developers. So it's really going towards this kind of commodity continuous work kind of thing. And of course the discussion is also increasingly on how RPA can be combined with other automation technologies that might be either being used already in some modest or minor ways, or then they are about something that the companies want to do and they don't know how, and they are asking for advice on how to get it implemented together with their existing RPA platform.
Great. Let's see how these predictions realize then. Now, we shall take a look at the RPA technologies in use in Finland. Usually, when this topic is raised, you cannot avoid mentioning UiPath and Blue Prism. It feels like these two companies in the field and dominate it, especially in the large Finnish companies. Is this still the case, Anna?
So indeed, the top 2 players seem still to be UiPath and Blue Prism. We see that 2/3 of the respondents are using UiPath and 1/3 is using Blue Prism. And these statistics also include those who are using both UiPath and Blue Prism or multiple technologies combined. And I think the growth of UiPath has shown especially in the recent years because the RPA programs executed most recently tend to use UiPath.
Yeah, one interesting side note is that if you think about the top 3 RPA players globally, the list says UiPath, Blue Prism, and Automation Anywhere, but in Finland, we can see 2 of those 3 dominating, and then one of them is fully missing from our respondents' answer sheets.
Yeah, Automation Anywhere's absence in the study is interesting indeed. Instead, we have quite a dark horse keeping the 3rd place, Robot Framework.
Yeah, many companies have included robot framework to the RPA program, and it seems to be used also alongside other technologies. Robot framework technology is especially familiar from test automation, and our sister company Sogeti also has a lot of robot framework talent, and we are following up the development of its RPA capabilities in a close operation with Sogeti.
We were earlier discussing on Finland being ahead of most other markets in RPA. Could it be the same thing with open source solutions, perhaps thanks to robot frameworks background being in Finland?
This is of course speculation. We cannot see what's going on elsewhere by looking at the Finnish study results, but I'm almost sure that we would not find robot framework as strong anywhere else with RPA, not yet at least. And like you say, this is due to robot framework's Finnish origins, and that's probably the reason why we have quite a lot of expertise and interest towards that in Finland. And I think less than 1 year ago when there was a launch event in Helsinki where robot frameworks RPA add-on was introduced, and back then it was still in alpha testing phase, and now there is at least one impressive Finnish startup whose capabilities are, as far as I have understood, fully being built around robot framework. So the things are moving fast again.
And one big plus what I see with robot framework is that there are no license costs, so you can scale the amount of robots easily without the fear of increasing external costs. And on the other hand, developing and maintaining RPA implemented with robot framework is also very different. It's closer rather to traditional software development, which in some cases is acceptable, but also limiting factor for many companies.
Yeah, and open source in general is splitting opinions at least among our clients. Sometimes already in RFPs we are seeing clear statement that you can only offer open source, and then some others are saying that we will not accept any open source options at all. So it's also a contractual issue sometimes.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how the use of open source will develop. But back to the more traditional companies in RPA and their new acquisitions. Many of these have expanded their portfolio towards the various other technologies included in intelligent automation. Do you, Jaakko, have a quick comments about this?
Yeah, a lot has happened in the past 1 year only. We just commented on this open source RPA and how quick the things have moved in a year. Also, during the last one year, Blue Prism has acquired a company called Autonomy, and people believe it's a sign for Blue Prism to want to gain more foothold both in RPA as a service markets and also to introduce new AI capabilities. UiPath has been acquiring several companies, one of them being Process Code, which has been now rebranded to UiPath Process Mining, and thanks to that, I think many RPA users are now heavily looking into process mining. Also, UiPath has been bringing out really a big amount of new products and features like task mining and some productized artificial intelligence capabilities. And then we cannot have this discussion about trends without mentioning Microsoft and their very recent acquisition of Softomotive, and that's a company who was creating an RPA technology called Win Automation. It's actually one of the first few RPA tools that I ever managed to find and try back when I started to look into the RPA business. And Microsoft has been doing more than that, also rebranding some of their earlier capabilities as RPA and bundled them in a nice way. And now, while almost all companies have Office subscriptions and Microsoft is pushing RPA into markets a little bit like an Office app, it's of course very interesting to see how quickly these Microsoft capabilities will get big attention in the markets. So if the question is that is RPA market still kind of moving quickly, I would say that absolutely yes.
Yeah, that's a good point mentioning the recent purchase by Microsoft. With there being more and more solutions supporting RPA and helping companies analyze their processes and handling semi-structured data, how eager have the Finnish companies been in expanding their RPA program more towards intelligent automation?
So in this figure, we can see listed those technologies which are typically counted as intelligent automation technologies. And most popular things seem to be OCR, then ML and chatbots, whereas advanced analytics, NLP, and process mining are in smaller use. We have seen in practice that companies use more and more chatbots. Also, I would say that there is an increasing interest towards process mining. But all in all, this figure, what we have there on slide, I would say that the bar chart of these technologies seems pretty even. So none of the options really is standing out, but all of them are still tested and used at least by some of the respondents.
Good to hear that companies are bold to try new things. But since these are additions on top of the existing RPA program, is it actually realistic to expect that the RPA team, with their hands full of managing and scaling up the RPA program, will also take responsibility of these other intelligent automation technologies?
Yeah, the good thing is that RPA has brought a lot of attention in general to companies' automation opportunities, and I would say that partially due to RPA, there are plenty of new roles also, like head of automation or digitalization lead or head of robotics, head of AI. And it is setting a certain kind of tone in what the company's management is expecting from such person. And while we all know that RPA is not the cure for everything, people will need to keep on looking into what really will solve their problems and how they can implement their new ideas and fulfill their needs. So that way, I think that RPA is speeding up the absorption of many kinds of automation technologies at the moment. And it just seems that the team behind many of those automation ideas might be the same that earlier had a full day job with RPA only.
Yeah, that makes sense. How does this resonate with the responses in our survey?
So in the survey, we asked how people see to where the future of IA is going, and these are some of the answers that we got. A big part of the respondents see that IA is developing precisely the technological development at forefront. Also, the respondents forecast how different intelligent automation technologies are integrated with each other and how the focus will be on growth and scaling. And these comments show that RPA has kind of paved the way for more advanced automation technologies. So yes, like Jaakko said, RPA has brought the attention more towards diverse automation opportunities, I think.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. And okay, it seems like we are approaching the end of the webinar. Thanks both for your insights. And for our audience, as a reminder, this and all the previous webinars are available as recordings on the address visible in the screen. Now, we still will take a couple questions received from you. First, there's a question to Jaakko. How many process automations can be fit in a single robot?
This is a great question. I kind of hope that this will be asked by the audience, and maybe that's the reason why we have the question. We have it covered in our study, but we didn't have it on our slides. And clients, for some reason, they keep on asking this. And of course, if you look at all the deployments ever done, you are able to find some process which will require huge amounts of robots only for one process, or you might have heard of some crazy company where they have 40 processes all running in one robot. But let's look at some best guesses now. And my gut feeling answer always to that question is 4. But now if we look at our study, it seems to be that the right answer is almost 5.5 if we trust the average, or actually below 2.5 if we trust the median of the respondents' answers. But my key point at least is that if you really are able to fit dozens of automations in only one robot, you might have a risk of this kind of maintenance costs eating all of your automation benefits. And you should really remember that it's actually each automation that will require some care and attention by the operation team. So it doesn't help if you just squeeze them all into one robot. You will still need some time and effort to make sure they are running and healthy.
Great, thanks. And then the second question we still have time for is, how often have companies been changing their RPA technologies on the way?
Okay, this is a good question, and we asked also this in our survey, and according to the results, over half of the respondents have had more than one RPA technology in use. So personally, I have a feeling that over these few years when RPA has existed, UiPath has gained more and more popularity compared to the other technologies, and companies have kind of moved to try UiPath at least. And now when RPA is more mature thing, and companies have slowly started to scale their RPA programs, I don't think that the change on the way will be that common anymore. But also, yeah, and very high percentage said in the survey that they are happy with their current RPA technology. So I think this also proves that the change is not necessarily needed. But instead of changing the technology, we actually see companies taking multiple RPA platforms or software in use. So I think this would be the answer.
Great, thanks. And it seems like we got even one more question just popping up. So how can we include AI/ML capabilities with external RPA tool?
All right, I can take that one. Of course, it depends a little bit on what capability that is, but all of the, or let's not say all, but most of the commonly used RPA software have kind of really good means to integrate with any external tool that has any kind of API interface or any other way to call the application. So at least in our projects we have been seeing implementations where, for example, RPA robot is calling a machine learning algorithm and then getting something back, and this something back might be a prediction with a confidence, and then the RPA robot would be using that prediction and confidence to do whatever it's supposed to be doing. So if it's a high confidence answer, maybe RPA is finalizing the whole transaction. If it's a low confidence prediction, then maybe RPA robot will not do anything and will address the transaction to human. But generally, rarely there is any problem in integrating these capabilities together. It's more about what capabilities do we have on hands, what should we have on top of that, and how much does it cost? Does it really pay off to acquire yet another technology? How can they use the new technology not only in one use case, but in several use cases? These are maybe the typical questions that we face and discussions we face when combining technologies together.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thanks for the insight. And thanks everyone for listening and staying here even though we went a little bit over time. So me and our whole Intelligent Automation team wish you a very good summer, and thanks for listening our Intelligent Automation webinar series. Thank you and bye.